Good morning, my name is Michael. I'm an alcoholic. And I do have experience with this step as it's laid out in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. With the help of a Big Book step study sponsor, I have completed the latter steps. I'm still currently making some financial amends, and I have a few other amends to make. And I definitely try to practice steps 10, 11, and 12 to the best of my ability on a daily basis. Thank you for asking me to speak. I really appreciate Kathy. I asked Kathy how long to speak, how long I was supposed to speak, and she said as long as I want. We might be here all day. So I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes, and I'll try to finish before that. Excuse me. Man, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I speak at a detox every first and third Friday. I'm comfortable with that because I've been doing it for over 3 years, close to 4 years now this October. And usually half the room's asleep, and that's why I'm comfortable with it. So this is a little bit more nerve-wracking. I'm usually, sharing a different type of message. So there's more responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility sharing, and there's different responsibility sharing from a podium. But I'm grateful I was asked. So I'm gonna try and do what I normally do when I share, and that's especially when I'm in that type of environment. I have to share a little bit about my past to qualify, because I want those people in the room to believe me. It's a life and death situation for us as well out here, but I want people to believe, how serious this is. But more importantly, I want to make sure I'm not lying. So I share a couple of things immediately, and I'm going to do that now because I'm a little bit nervous, and I always get nervous, and I'm not sure if it's because I'm speaking in front of people or it's because I had too much caffeine and I didn't eat much breakfast, but I have to share a couple of things, and I usually am standing up all the time too when I speak from a podium or at these commitments. So forgive me, I'm going to be at the edge of my seat probably this whole time. So anyway, I pawned my daughter's swing set. She was like 6 years old. My wife came home. She was like, "Where's the swing set?" And I was like, "That thing's been in the garage for like 18 months, and it's winter. I'm not putting it in now. Like, get off my back." I eventually stole my daughter's bonds. I pawned my wife's wedding ring. I stole my mother's debit card. I have done a whole host of other horrible things, but those are the ones I like to share first. So I remind myself of what type of person that alcohol, that after consuming alcohol out of warm plastic bottles, 24/7, and at the end of every drink was my dealer's number as soon as I finished that glass. So I have to remind myself of what I used to do. I also need to share that I've been physically abused, emotionally abused, sexually abused, and I share that too because I know there's some people in here that suffer from that, and I don't know sometimes why I share that, but I can breathe easier after I do that stuff. So I'm butt naked now, so I'm not fearful as much as I was when I started. So here we go. So thanks for letting me share. And sometimes in meetings like this, I like to qualify like why I'm an alcoholic. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to put some things together, like some projects together, but I put together a Barbie dream house once, and I dumped all the pieces, all 1,000 and 1,500, whatever million pieces on the floor, Christmas Eve at 2:30 in the morning with a mean buzz, right? And that's it. That qualifies me. That's it. I can tell a ton of other stories, man. And a lot of them are laughable, but they're pretty pitiful when I think back. It's easy to laugh at ourselves, and somebody I know a lot of people in here can identify with that. So when I first cracked this book with my sponsor, I had a ton of fear, and I had a ton of anxiety, and I was so I was just afraid that it wasn't going to work for me because I had been in and out of detoxes a million times. And again, please bear with me. I know I need to be sharing about step 9 because it's so important to me. But man, this process is so amazing to me. There was something that we read already in this book, just in this last chapter. And I identified it tremendously. And I have to share that out loud, right? Like when he was talking about, we talk about mentioning God to a prospect. And for me, I no longer will hide my enthusiasm for God. I hope I don't offend anyone, and if I do, oh well. I no longer hide my excitement for Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't. It has saved my life. And every time I get at the end of making that statement, my voice cracks a little bit because I am that grateful, because every single morning I pray to remember where I came from. And when I do that, then I start to think of my little girl who says, Daddy, I hate you, right? I start to think about being in jail. I start to think about all the horrific things that I've done to my family. And it says it right in that chapter, some of the things that we've done, right? That we're shameful for. And I'm not that guy anymore. It talks in this chapter about when we make amends and we do them the right way, of how certain things happen, right? My ex-wife is one of my best friends today, right? She actually has correspondence with the woman that I'm dating. Like they talk to each other, which is amazing. And usually I would hide my phone and act like I don't even know that I had an ex-wife, like because of the type of person I used to be. I wouldn't want anybody to know what I did, right? But we can't shrink from any of this. It has to be total honesty. So my gratitude is through the roof for this process, through the roof. So sitting down with my sponsor, and this thing should be done with a sponsor, right? Sitting down with my sponsor in the beginning, I was so fearful about this process. My story is my story, and it's the truth. I thought I could do Alcoholics Anonymous the way I wanted every single time. I remember being in this room in like 2003 or 2004 and wanting nothing to do with it. I remember being at another big book meeting on one of these millions of hills in Worcester and being offended that I couldn't speak. And this is like in 2004, right? So I'm the king of an unconsecutive sober time because I just celebrated 5 years on Friday last week, and I've been in this process since 2003. Because every single time I came into these halls, I thought I could do it my way. So now here I have a set of directions on how to do some amends, right? And I did them the way they were laid out, just like every step prior, to the best of my ability. Because let me tell you something, step 1, step 2, step 3 was early on for me. I got into the work right away, and I was pretty sick. Matter of fact, after celebrating Tuesday night, I was with somebody who met me around that time when I first came around this last time, and with the most serious face, his name is Timmy D. I love this man. He is a joker. I mean, a joker beyond jokers. You can't look at Timmy without laughing. And Timmy made the most serious face. You were a train wreck. And look at you now. Right? So thinking now, but what a train wreck I was when I first came in, to be able to follow some instructions to the best of my ability. Man, like they probably weren't too good. The way I think about it now, right? But I continued in the process, and I continued to have faith. I continued to have faith that my higher power would bring me through, man. So as far as step 9 is concerned, I've had some tremendous, well, let's just start first at 8, right? Because that's what we're doing, right? I love the fact that they say go back to your grudge list, because when I was writing that down, boy, I had a grudge. Matter of fact, I was so excited I got to talk some smack about people. I was like, because I thought this was going to be all about me. My sponsor's great. He said, listen, we go to a lot of big book meetings, we go to step study meetings, I go to workshop meetings, so I'm going ahead in the book and I'm learning about things that I don't even know apply to me. But he always told me, when you're at home, do not crack that page any further than what we're reading together, because I might get some ideas of my own. And that's what's got me into trouble in the first place, right? So when he said to me, now we get to write down some names and this is your grudge list, I was excited. Because I remember hearing about the prior steps in meetings, but not knowing exactly what I was supposed to do. So now I get to go back to this list, and that grudge list looked totally different, by the way. It was the same list, but it looked differently. It read differently to me after doing these other steps, right? So I go back to this list, and now I have fear again. See, and I need to clearly, I need to be clear about this. When I keep mentioning this word fear, I know now that fear is never going to leave me. Matter of fact, fear is a human emotion that is built into me, and I will always have, because that's the way my Creator made me, right? I'm not perfect. But I do know one thing, the amount of fear that I have today versus the amount of fear that I had when I first stepped into this process this last time are two different things. Just like the way that just the same way that the people that know me today, if you told them some of the things I've done in the past, they would be absolutely mind blown, especially the people that I work for. They would not believe it. Matter of fact, before I came back to this area, I was running my own business, and I was actually nannying, right, and a personal assistant. And I'm in people's homes. Can you imagine if they knew what I did and I'm taking care of their kids? I don't think so, right? So here I am, looking at this list, and I'm afraid that I have to talk to these people. I have this massive amount of fear that I have to, especially go to my mom. My mom is a retired employee of the state. She worked 30 years in the state prison system. My mom's no joke, and And my mom's like barely 5 feet tall, so I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a foot bigger than my mother, and I remember she would reach up and knock me out when I was like 14. I started drinking and drugging when I was 14, so some people say that I'm the same age as when I got in this process, so you know what I mean? I'm barely an adult now. So I still have some of that, I still have a lot of that fear going to talk to my mother. And my sponsor says to me, he says, this is how we're going to do this process. He's a sports guy, so he uses a lot of analogies, sports analogies, and he says, we're going to pick some slam dunks. I can identify with that because I play a lot of basketball. Baseball's my favorite sport, but I play a lot of basketball. And I remember dunking. Yes, that's a good feeling. Let's do a slam dunk. And then he says, go to your mother. And I said, my mother's going to probably block that dunk at the rim. I don't know if I want to do that. So I picked another slam dunk. A woman by the name of Mrs. C, she actually took me in when I was a teenager in high school. My mother first had to move, so I continued to stay in the school I was in because I was playing sports. And I went to Mrs. C. She thought that I just wanted to have coffee and reconnect because I visit them very often. I see her, this woman, I've been seeing her on a regular basis since I've been a high school student. She's just like she's my second mother. And I go see Mrs. C, and I make my amends. And Mrs. C is trying to stop me the entire time. Stop, stop, stop. You're not that bad. Stop, stop. But Mrs. C, if anybody understands this phrase, I dope fiended you giving me money so many times, Mrs. C. Like, I didn't necessarily put my hand in your purse, but I lied to you so many times for you to give me money, and I want to pay that back. Stop, stop, stop. You weren't that bad. You're a good kid, Michael. This was more than a slam dunk. It was like a 360 dunk. I was feeling great after this. And I was trying to make a financial amends at the same time. I was trying to hand her some money, and she refused to take it. She refused to. And for me, I could talk about this experience for a while, but for me, the end of this experience was she got up to grab a napkin or a drink or something, and I got to slide that money in her purse. And she never noticed it until months after that money was in her purse, And she didn't tell me until, years later that I slid that money into her purse. I see her on a regular basis. That made me feel good. Slam dunk, right? I'm ready for mom, not a slam dunk. Mom blocked me at the rim. This process now, from what my sponsor's telling me, I need to continue doing this work because he gave me some instructions in the beginning and they came to fruition, right? So now I'm starting to be more on board with this. Now, for my story is that I started this work my first year into this process. Matter of fact, I started the work 2 months into it. I was finished right after my first anniversary. So this growth process, again, my maturity level and the growth that I'm doing with the steps are two different worlds to me, and I'm not sure how this actually works. Am I supposed to be doing this for the rest of my life, and can I actually keep this up? I'm not sure if I can. So I balked for a while with this ninth step amend, and my ego got in the way a little bit, and I started thinking I could do some things my own way, and I found myself, feeling uncomfortable, being humbled in a lot of different situations. So as far as my stories is concerned, when I'm making these amends to people, I thought the slam dunks would be all family members. And come to find out, I had family members that didn't even want to talk to me. My younger brother, I had custody of him at a young age for just a year. It wasn't a long time. And there's 8 years difference between us, but that's not a parent's age. I shouldn't have been watching the 16-year-old kid when I was in my early 20s, taking care of him. I knew how to do all those things. I knew how to be like a parent, but emotionally, I wasn't available for him. And he saw me right when this light switch got turned on. He saw me doing things that he did not know his big brother did. My brother told me at one time I was his idol. Matter of fact, I have a bunch of cousins that are all around the same age, 8 years or younger than me, and they've all told me in some similar fashion that they looked up to me in the same way that my brother did. And all of these young men I've disappointed immensely, never mind all the other people in my family. And these amends became hard. I thought these family members would be slam dunks, and people were like, get away from me. We don't want you around yet. Because again, like I said, I started this process pretty early. So I was already making 9 steps amends, barely after a year. In a year, I found out, let's go back to the first time I had a year sober. I remember, because I'm the king of unconsecutive sober time is over sitting in front of you, right? I amassed about 11 years, maybe even 12 years over this 15-year span. I remember saying to my wife, and we're divorced now, I remember saying to my wife when I came home after some treatment, what's your problem? What's your problem, is what I said when she was giving me some grief. That's enough right there. Some people are giggling. What's my problem, mother? Like, 3.5 months sober, 90 days I haven't had a drink. Like, can't you get off my back? Don't you, like, this is actually my amends, by the way. Like, I'm sorry for what I did. I won't do it again. I haven't drank in 90 days. Now, the people that are laughing and who can understand this are the people who have gone through the work. And for you, those of you out here who have not gone through the work, you might be able to identify saying this recently. And if you haven't said it yet, take it from me, don't say it. And I say that like really meaning that. My wife is on that list when I say physically abused and emotionally abused. She used to knock the crap out of me too. And she's an inch bigger than my mother. So I know how to take a punch from short women. It's all the truth. And it's a lie. She never punched me. But man, she did smack me, and she did use some other utensils often. What a humbling experience that was. Because now here, this time that I'm amassing in between that so-called amends that I made with my wife back then, nothing got better between us. Matter of fact, things got worse. And all these previous times that I tried to get sober and I didn't do the work the way it was laid out, because let me tell you something, I thought that I was doing step work, by the way. Here's another thing that proves that I'm insane. I have to mention step 2, because it says when we're entirely ready, right? We turn, once we believe that we're insane. See, step 2 says restore us to sanity. That means I have to believe that I'm insane. And it took me this process this time around to realize that I was insane. So I had a plethora of examples. I mean, a garbage pile. I mean, a mountain of examples to show that I participated in insane activity. And the only way I was able to realize that I was doing those things is when I was able to get out of my own way and do some of this work the way it was laid out. So eventually I got around to making amends to my mother. I made an amends. I wasn't able to make a financial amends, but I finally got around to being able to make an amends to my mother. And my mother, again, this time, didn't block me at the rim the way I thought she was going to the first time. And I apologize if I made that sound confusing, because when I tried to make amends before, my mom definitely didn't want to hear it. My mother simply said to me, I don't want to hear any of this stuff that you're saying to me right now. Pay me back the money you owe me. What she said, my mom is so loving, by the way. She's just not that loving with her kids because she has an expectation working in the prison system. She's the nicest woman in the world. Matter of fact, most people don't believe half the stories I tell about my mother because she's a very sweet lady. She just had to raise 3 kids by herself, moving from New York to Massachusetts with no family, right? And I bounced back and forth to New York 100 times living with my dad, so I kept bringing that nonsense back into her home when she was trying to get away from it, right? I looked just like my dad. I can see why she knocked me out sometimes. She was probably having flashbacks that it was my dad. Pay me back the money you owe me, with that stern voice. And I was like, oh, here we go again, right? And continue doing what you're currently doing. I'm so proud of you. I'm so amazed that you're this person. I always knew you were this person. And then she said, I wish your sister and brother were more like you. And that made me feel really good. Because I have older siblings. I have older siblings that are not in this process and are not alcoholics. And they picked on me a lot. They're much older, a few years older than me. So that's how the amends went with my mother. And I can tell you, making some of these other 9-step amends, all of them didn't go the way. They say 9 out of 10 people will admit, 1 out of 9 people will say that they did something wrong as well. That really hasn't happened to me yet. I'm not saying that it's not true, because I believe everything that's written down in this book, but I do still have some amends to make, right? I still have some amends to make. And this process, I guess the best way for me to say this thing is this process is laid out the way it's laid out because it was a God-given process. It's not laid out the way Michael wants it to be laid out. So if I can impress upon anyone to continue doing this work, just remember, or try to think, maybe not so much remember, but try to think about all the nonsense that you've done in your life prior to doing this work, before you get involved in it. And when you think about that nonsense, think about who was driving the bus. Think about who was behind the steering wheel. Think about who was the CEO. You were the one who was making this decision. Once I came to believe that I was entirely mad, that I was insane, all this work became much easier for me. See, because step 1 was so easy. I knew that once I put a substance into my body, that I was going to be out of my mind. Once I believed that I was insane, then this process became a whole lot easier for me because I was able to allow someone else to help me. Then once I get to step 9, my fears have diminished. I still have fear. I had fear coming up here right now. I'm going to have fear later on today for something I have no idea, but I know it's going to crop up, and I have some tools. And I have some tools today to deal with it. So if you're in this process today, and you're coming up on making some amends, and I know I've heard some people say the 4th step had me worried, the 9th step had me worried. Fine, be fearful of them all, right? But know that you have a God that is going to keep you in his hand, and he's going to keep you close, and you are covered in his blood, and you are safe. Right? My sponsor says these things, and I'm going to say 2 more things that my sponsor says, because I have a good sponsor, right? And if you don't believe you have a good sponsor, then something's wrong, right? And if you're sponsoring yourself, something's wrong. I have a good sponsor. Because I used to sponsor myself, so I can say that knowing that, right? There we go. I have a good sponsor. And one thing he said to me is, Michael, we have the playbook. He's like, there's a lot of talented people out there, right? There's a lot of Tom Brady's out there, right? But we got the playbook before the game, the other team's playbook. Let's start using this thing. Let's start using this thing. And then the next thing he said, you know, because he's a jail guy. I'm not really a jail guy. I've been to jail. Late in life, right? Late in life. All alcohol and drug related. And he said to me, put me in protective custody as far as this is concerned. Because if you know anything about jail, no one wants to get PC. No one wants to go to jail because they're telling on someone or because someone thinks they did something to go to jail inside of jail. But this put me in protective custody. I need to be protected. Put me away from everyone else so I can actually visit the real world. I need this so I can visit the real world. Thanks for letting me share. I appreciate it.